Hello and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. This morning we have Kessler blended American whiskey, introduced in 1888. 80 proof, blended at a 72.5 to 27.5 ratio. Currently a Beam-Suntory brand. This is blended and bottled in Kentucky. I don't have too much left. I bought this. Oh, where did I buy it? I think in Kentucky, but it is sold in Louisiana. I know at least 2 stores sell it. Whoops. And we're going up against Club 400 blended whiskey from Baltimore County, Maryland. Majestic Distilling Company, formerly known as Monumental Distilling. Introduced in 1951. Blended and bottled in Maryland at an 80-20 ratio, age 3 years. Kessler, age 2 years. Forgot to mention that. So a 2-year age Kessler, but with a higher percentage of straight whiskey. I think that's it for Kessler. We don't have enough to go for another challenge, I don't think. Too bad. So 2-year versus 3-year. 27.5% straight whiskey versus 20%. Will it make a difference? I guess it might make a little difference. I was able to tell them apart so far. Let's see, what is this? Kessler. The Kessler is darker. It's more amber, and the Club 400. I'm going to pour the rest because there's not enough to even think about doing. We're going to bring in McCormick next. McCormick coming into play probably tomorrow. And that'll be a few challenges. Couldn't pass it up because it was $1.97 after tax. Okay, so Club 400 is a Sazerac brand. Majestic Distilling is owned by Sazerac. There is also apparently a Club 400 gin. Well, I know there is. It says on the Sazerac website, Club 400 gin. It's one of those, you know, where there's all different types under the same brand name. It's probably like Club 400 gin, Club 400 blended whiskey, Club 400 vodka, Club 400. Probably like some liqueur, you know, like cinnamon. And you know how those things work. But with Kessler, I think there's just the Kessler. There might be one of those cinnamon brands, though. I mean, a lot of these companies have stuff they don't list. And then it all starts showing up. You just see it. Okay, I think I have it well mixed, so I can't tell them apart. I don't want to glance, though, because one is a little darker than the other. You know, like they have Jim Beam, and then there's Jim Beam. Well, they're all whiskeys and whiskey derivatives, like, right? Like bourbon whiskey, and then they got the cinnamon and the Jim Beam apple and all that business, which I never, then Jim Beam and Coke, the pre-mixed stuff. I never drink any of those. All right. Now, McCormick is a company, so they have all kind of stuff. When we get to that, they have blended whiskey. They sell the McCormick vodka everywhere around here. The vodka, there's gin, brandy, which I've never seen. Then they have another line of like upscale blended whiskeys and all kind. I don't want to get into it, but you can check their website. It's pretty interesting. Maxwell says, hi, Ron. Hello, Maxwell, over there in Eastern Europe. How are you? I'm fine. It's dawn. We got the daylight breaking out here. I know it's daytime for you. The aroma I'm getting on this one here is just like straight alcohol burn. Grain alcohol. You say that's just corn liquor. Basically, that's what these are. It's mostly unaged corn distillate, grain neutral spirits. Whereas bourbon is mostly corn also, but it's mostly aged corn whiskey, aged in a new, never before used charred oak barrel, right? That's the difference. That's why it turns reddish brown. So the color in these is coming from the straight whiskeys added to the clear grain neutral spirits, the moonshine, if you want to call it that, because that's what it is. No, they don't have coloring added. I mean, they could, but they would have to disclose it on the label. It is not listed on the label, so therefore we know it does not have coloring added. Okay. This other one, the second one, has more wood, barrel, charred wood, rye spice, cornbread, the dried flowers and all of that. Smells like bourbon, literally. I think a lot of people would say, oh, that's an interesting light bourbon. You know, they might say, I think that's Kessler. The second one I had was Kessler. But let's see, they're breathing now. So and a little bit of the caramel is coming in and a little bit of spice. And I think the Club 400, I think, if I remember right, had more of the rye spice. That's where Pikesville rye originated, rye whiskey. Sazerac themselves are known, Sazerac Buffalo Trace, you know, they're known for their high rye whiskey content. So that's making me think. And it's pungent. It seems to have a sourdough aspect, which is making me think Sazerac, Majestic Distilling, Club 400, because they're probably using or could be using ancient age, the 3-year ancient age straight bourbon as their 20% straight whiskey, which is sour mash whiskey. So, you know, you gotta look, you gotta really not look, but sniff and smell and think about the telltale signs. Like you might think you hear a heartbeat in the wall and you say, oh, and you just go crazy. It could be your conscience or something, or your could be a hallucination, right? Okay. Okay. It's funny, but people have commented on this. If you let them breathe, you let them sit, probably better to let them set out for 30 minutes. They will change. There's been a change of smell. Change. There's been a change of smell. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. Shall we? If we're able, taste the transient nightfall of diamonds. All right. Star crashes. All right. To ashes. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. I'm picking up some melon, like honeydew melon. And if I remember, a day, I thought the Club 400 had a honeydew melon aspect a while back. It's been a long, long, long time, but I recall melon. All right. I remember that melon aspect. Now, you see, this once again. Once again. It has that green wood, that cellar mold, that mossiness, that Spanish, like moss. It has that Jim Beam stereotypical flavor. You say he's gone crazy. There's no way Jim Beam would not take. Well, who makes this Kessler? Oh, right. Beam-Suntory, Jim Beam Company. It's not outside the realm of possibility that they're using a 2-year age Jim Beam as their 27%, 27.5% straight whiskey. I think it's a strong possibility. And that's what it tastes like. Okay, my. You arrest the girl for turning tricks, but you're scared of style. Okay. Oh, well, what is the big question? Well, the price, looking at the clock, the price is the same for both bottles. If you get the 750 milliliter glass bottle, the price is the same. So that's no factor. The only factor, I mean, that's no variable. I meant to say it's not a variable. It's an important factor. It's not a variable. The variable is the flavor. Which flavor do you prefer? Oh, in ancient Rome, there was a poem about a dog who had 2 bones. He picked the one, he picked the other. He wanted seconds, he dropped dead. Okay. I could live with that. And I could live with that. Long ago, and oh, so far away. All right. Which one's better? It's so minuscule of a difference that it's almost not worth mentioning. But on the other hand, there is a slight, and I mean slight, bit scintilla of difference. And I think the one in my left hand, you're right. My left hand is a little better. And I think that's the Club 400. Hey, well, that's the way it goes. But let's see if I'm correct, because I could be wrong, right? But I'm not wrong. I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. Yes, I did it. That's Club 400. Well, such an expert. I just can't. Oh, I could just be lucky, right? 50-50 shot. we'll say that it's profound expertise. I feel more comfortable going along with that than saying it's just a 50-50 shot and you lucked out. Yes. We will defer to the side of the spark of genius. No, but I think the flavor really tipped me off now. I mean, you saw this exercise. On the aroma, I thought that was Club 400, and that was the Kessler, right? And then I went through the flavors, and then I broke them down, right? The little components, and the important thing is to have a memory of what you had before, because I started off years ago with the Benchmark. That was the first bourbon, I believe. And then I went to the Jim Beam. I was sitting in the backyard. I remember right where I was sitting, back there by the azalea bush. And I said, oh, the Jim Beam seemed to have this very distinct green wood, cellar mold, mossiness. And I keep harping on that. And some people might hate me to say it. Other people might like that. I don't know. But then you start looking at other Beam products, and they seem to have this house style characteristic thing, train of flavor and aroma going. And so you can kind of, that's what you do. You start stripping away the different, and you start bringing it down to the commonality, and that's what it has, I think. And then I did the Club 400, seemed to have the same type of peculiarity. And even the Canadian leaf, imported from Canada, I know. But they do the processing at Majestic Distilling, and it seems to have some shared characteristics, and it's hard to pin down, but it's like William Kepley said, you can't describe it, but you know it's there. And it does have that. And that whole house of Sazerac, you know, next year, 2019, opening in New Orleans for free tours and samples, the Sazerac experience. But I think if people drink enough Sazerac brands, they're going to notice there's a house style all from the top to the bottom, you know, the cheapos to the top. And I've had the Pappy Van Winkles and the Albertsons, you know, the low to the high. And there is some strain of commonality, and it's hard to describe. Blanton, I did Blanton, and I said, the first thing that hit me, I said, ooh, woof. I got to get off of here because of the news. I got a hard break. I got to stop. When I first tried the Blantons over there in Jefferson Parish, my friend Dave said, what do you think? What do you think? I said, well, so I'm thinking, you know, I said, it tastes like an upscale Buffalo Trace. I think that's what it tastes like. Oh, he said, that's what it is. That's what it is. I got ripped off. All this is fancified Buffalo Trace. And he was all angry about it. I said, no, I wouldn't be angry about it. It just tastes like that. Because, you know, Buffalo Trace be like $29 a bottle or less. And then the Blanton's like $54 or more. And it just seemed to have that strain. It's like you look at Marvel Comics artwork. I'm talking about years ago, not after the breakdown of after 1990 when things broke down on both ends, both companies, but say like 1961 well, let's go a little further when they got a little more craft, with their craft got a little more tightened up. Let's say 1963 to 83. Okay, 63 to 83. You look at DC Comics artwork and Marvel Comics artwork. As soon as you look at it, you know which is which. You just, that's a Marvel comic book. You don't even have to look at the cover. You just look at the artwork. You know, and DC, yep, that's DC Comics. You cannot mistake it. They were so within a certain character, and that's how these whiskeys break down. I think with the house styles. You just knew DC and you knew Marvel. And some people hated one and loved the other, or vice versa. I tended to like both, but they weren't the same. Even the writing, you know, you could tell the writing was different. Like Marvel Comics, the pacing was different. The whole story, the whole concept of how they did it was different. And DC was always, I don't want to get into all that theory, but it was always a different, much different way of looking at it, looking at that imaginary world. And that's why you could never really merge those two, because it wouldn't. It was sort of like when they would do those crossovers between the companies, it was like two positives or two negatives hitting together. It would push against it. It didn't work right. Oh, you could merge them now because they've deteriorated so bad. There's really no distinction. It's just, it's not hard to merge trash. But at the time, in the glory days, you couldn't do it. We're still in the glory days of whiskey, I believe. So, or beer, you know, beer and whiskey. I don't know about wine. I drink it. I don't know what the glory days are of wine. I don't have enough capability there. I barely have enough capability in whiskey, but I am able to get these right. So now generally, so now the next one coming up, it's probably tomorrow. Tomorrow never knows, but so turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream, because tomorrow we got the McCormick from Missouri, and I think we're going to go up against Seagram 7 from Indiana. Thank you for watching this video production.